everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We have a returning guest, the one and only Mr. Sheriff Richard Mack, who's been gracious enough to join us at this critical time in American history with all these changes happening. He can give us his wisdom and insight as to how he sees things from his purview. If you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel to grow and others to gain the knowledge you're currently being afforded. As you know, Sheriff Mack is the former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. He served in law enforcement for 20 years, served as a patrol officer, corporal sergeant, undercover agent, a school resource officer, detective, and also specialized in crimes against children. In 1980, he was elected to the office of sheriff of his hometown and served as such for 8 years. 1991, he graduated from the FBI Academy. During his time as sheriff, he became the first sheriff in American history to sue the federal government to take it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in 1993 with a landmark win against a government overreach during the Clinton administration on the Second Amendment. That specifically as Mack Prince was the case that was hailed as the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in USA history. Mack was also named the NRA Officer of the Year, inducted in NRA Hall of Fame, received the Cicero Award, the Samuel Adams Leadership Award, received the Gun Ownership of America's Defender of the Second Amendment Award, as well as the Elected Official of the Year by the Arizona-New Mexico Coalition of Counties. He is the founder and president of the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. This organization is dedicated to the restoration of individual liberty as well as the protection of civil rights. He's provided hundreds of training of seminars to sheriffs, police officers, and public officials in all 50 states, as well as several other countries across the world. He's also appeared on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, Newsmax, New York Times, LA Times, USA Today, as well as 1,000 radio networks worldwide. He's been married for over 50 years to his wife, Dawn, and they have 5 children and 15 grandchildren. So needless to say, he's been rather busy. Sheriff Mack, welcome back to the podcast. How are you, good sir?
Really, really well. Thanks, John. Appreciate being back with you. And the most busy thing about that is all the grandkids.
Yeah, I'll bet. I would imagine that keeps you young and vibrant.
They're always asking me to take them to Disneyland. I swear.
Yeah. You don't want to take them there. You know too much about that. But that is the mindset of a child for sure. Right. Well, Sheriff Mack, so we just had a quote election during November 4th, where clearly there was more vote grabbing and manipulation, especially here in California and other major states. What do you think was the impetus for that? Was that President Trump's way of just alerting the American public as to the ongoing corruption? And what do you think will be coming out of that in the aftermath?
I don't think anybody's come to grips yet with the extent of election fraud and just the horrible people that keep getting reelected and the ridiculous things that we do as voters. I don't believe the voters are that stupid. I just don't believe, even in California, I don't believe the voters are that stupid to be part of the corruption and to just keep this going. I don't believe that the people have reelected Nancy Pelosi all those times, or Maxine Waters, or in my own state, John McCain, before he passed away, God rest his soul. But John McCain, I don't like talking about people who've already passed on, but he was a corrupt politician. And I had some personal run-ins with him where he was just totally corrupt. He lied to me numerous times. And all I was doing is trying to get a man out of prison by the name of Sam Girard, who was an Amish farmer in Kentucky, who got arrested by the FDA because he made a salve out of chickweed, a lotion out of chickweed. And I didn't even know what chickweed was until he called me and asked me for help. And this horrible thing that this judge and this prosecutor did to him, federal prosecutors and judges, put him in, gave him a 6-year sentence. And I turned to John McCain for help. And I said, this guy should not be arrested for this. He should not be charged. And now he got a 6-year prison sentence. And this is what really gets me about the corrupt government we have. They don't care if they put innocent people in prison. They do not care. And John McCain didn't care one iota. And I talked to several people in his office, and one of them, his father used to be a congressman from here, and I called him back after I was so disappointed in what uh, John McCain did, and I said, "Let me ask you something. You're the right hand man. He was head of staff. He was the right hand man for John McCain." I said, "Does anybody in Washington D.C. just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do?" And he gave me one word response: "No." That's all he said. He was so ashamed because he worked for the system, and he realized what I was asking was true, and
Mm.
what I felt was true, and what was going on in DC is true. It's worse now. That was like 15 years ago, and it's worse, and it keeps getting worse because both parties, especially the Democrats, and I'm in the middle of writing a book about how the Democrats are destroying America. But it doesn't make me feel any better that I say, but sometimes the Republicans do it too. I don't like saying that. And maybe it boils down to what Washington warned us about, that the two-party system would be the bane of American liberty. And that's where, because both parties are more loyal to their party than they are to America and to the people therein. And the bottom line of what I'm saying, voter fraud is still a national phenomenon, maybe an international phenomenon. It still exists, and there's nothing we can do about it until we remove foreign-made computers to tabulate the votes for American elections.
Agreed. And I think, thank you for that, Sheriff. And I think going back, as you know, President Trump talking about, paper ballots with watermarking and just getting it back to
Yes,
basics is going to be seminal to, in one way, to achieve that. A sort of a
yes.
follow-up question, if you will, is there, because you brought up California, New York, the usual suspects, is there hope for these states, and how do we get the corruption out of those states where it's been so pervasive for so long?
Well, I think it's in every state though. Every time somebody calls me from a different state, they go, "Oh, our state's just the most corrupt state in the union, and oh, we're so corrupt here." And everybody's complaining about that. And I just don't, even Utah, uh, y- and and I started my police career in Utah, but I will tell you flat out that the Governor Cox, cheated to get reelected this past year. And he cheated probably more than any other governor. No, no, no question. He cheated more than any other governor in the entire country. And it really set me back that he was using the Charlie Kirk assassination and investigation to 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 really distract everybody from his own personal election fraud. And so I don't think California is that much worse than and New York are that much worse. Chicago, all of them, maybe they're a little bit worse than some of the smaller states and less populated states, but it's just so prevalent across the entire country. And right now, though, you have to say, well, of course, New York's the worst now in the country because they have a communist that's going to be the mayor, probably the greatest city in the world. And I will tell you honestly, I've been to New York several times, and I absolutely love New York. And I don't think there's any way that I'd want to take my family back there. I do not trust it. I do not trust it. And this man is a jihadist. Mamdani is a jihadist. He is a Muslim fanatic. He is a Marxist, communist. Um, if people don't understand the history of communism in the world and how America fought 4 or 5 different wars to stop communism, we did the Cold War, that Ronald Reagan sort of won, but he held it perestroika. He held it. He did his best to contain communism, which was perestroika was all about. But it has gained such a stronghold now in America that I have to ask, Saunders and AOC and many others, do you know the history behind communism and that it always ended up as a complete and utter totalitarian government that turned on their own people and murdered and created genocides and murdered millions and millions and millions of people throughout the world? And now you somehow think that that's going to help New York City and help America in any way? And this is how far off the Democrats are taking America. And that's one of the reasons why I'm co-authoring a book about all this. We have got to wake people up. We've got to wake America up and get back to our constitutional republic.
Absolutely. And that's a good segue, Sheriff, to the next question I was actually going to ask you. So I'm not sure if you've had the year of President Trump, but I kind of imagine you would. If you were to sit and talk with him now, what would be on your to-do list of the most important topics you'd want to see him address?
Well, first, Washington, D.C. And the Congress and the White House have all got to wipe their own noses. We've got to, and this. I really am glad that President Trump is president. I donated to his campaign. I went to a fundraiser for him in Las Vegas. Um, and he had an amazing promise that he was going to do the best he could for the American people. And I think what he's done at the border has been absolutely miraculous. But now we need to focus on this corruption, and we've got to focus on going back to the Constitution. And there's some things that they have to do in Washington, D.C. and in the White House. First and foremost, the big, beautiful bill defunded Planned Parenthood for 1 year. What is that? Planned Parenthood should never have received a single taxpayer dollar ever. And they have received billions and billions of taxpayer dollars over the last 20, 25 years. That is criminal. That is absolutely criminal. Why? Because corrupt politicians have funneled that money to Planned Parenthood last year, $800 million. $800 million to a non-government organization who provides no government service whatsoever. And then Planned Parenthood takes donations and taxpayer dollars and donates it back to the campaigns of the top abortionists in Washington, D.C. and Congress. That is completely and entirely criminal. I have a national organization, CSPOA. I have never asked, nor would I ever accept money funneled from taxpayers to our organization. We actually provide a government service. We actually protect the God-given rights of all people. We protect civil rights. We're probably the top civil rights organization in the country right now. And we believe that all governments should be protecting the civil rights of the American people. And yet, I would never take money for that from taxpayers. Private donations from American citizens? Absolutely. Go to cspoa.org and make as many donations as you can. But I'm not going to take taxpayer dollars forced by the IRS to pay taxes, and then, and that's the second problem. President Trump, you and Mike Johnson have got to get together, defund Planned Parenthood forever, and abolish the IRS, which is a bullying organization, completely illegal, completely unconstitutional, and they have been going after American people. Innocent people are in prison because of the IRS. And if the tax code were simple and fair, we wouldn't even need the IRS. And they flunked their own audits. And this has happened time and time and time again. And what they have done to American people has proven that freedom and the IRS cannot coexist. And it hasn't. And freedom has been the victim. And the other one, abolish the Federal Reserve. Do not talk about firing Jerome Powell or another lady on the board. Dissolve the entire thing. We have literally turned a requirement in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution over to private banksters. And that is that the United States Congress is required by the supreme law of the land to coin money and regulate the value thereof. They have turned it over to private banksters that run the Federal Reserve, and they're no more federal than fly to the moon. These things have to happen, or America cannot be great again. And this is where we need to focus now. Continue with deportation, absolutely. And every sheriff in this country should be helping with that. But they cannot be forced to one way or the other. So we have got to get moving. Really, if we're going to make America great again, those three things have to happen. And that should be on President Trump's to-do list. And I would be more than happy to help. But no, I have never spoken directly to President Trump. I've had people that have lobbied him through me, but I have never talked to President Trump. I've never shaken his hand. I would love to, and I would love to go golfing with him in Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Sheriff Mack. I wasn't aware of whether or not you had actually spoken to him, but hopefully, as you said, that can occur, hopefully in the not too distant future here. And I think we will see collectively that the IRS will get flipped to the ERS, collecting tariffs and removing it as we go back to the Republic. He's going to, I believe, I'm watching closely to see if he's going to elect Judy Shelton as the new Fed chair replacement once they remove Powell, because she is such a gold advocate. And it's exactly what we need to do is unwind, as you said, articulately, the 1971 standard with Nixon and Kissinger, which really did us the disservice, not to mention 1913, which you alluded to tacitly on that.
And by the way, one other thing that came up during the Trump administration with Elon Musk is that they were going to audit the gold in Fort Knox.
Fort Knox.
Whatever happened to that?
I think it's still on, yeah.
I think it was obvious it wasn't there, and if they had announced that it wasn't there, the dollar would crash tomorrow. So maybe they did it just because of that, but still, that needs to happen. That gold belongs to the American people. Something needs to happen there. The gold needs to be put back, or reserves need to be put back in there, so that when they do the audit, it doesn't cause a worldwide depression.
Correct. And that's what we're banking on them doing, especially as we come into the first quarter next year with a crash coming, because you cannot sustain the system. To your point, it's just not sustainable.
$38 trillion in debt is absolutely absurd. And it's a disaster catastrophe waiting to happen.
Yeah. And I think the numbers are probably even bigger than that, because as you know, the numbers.
Oh, they are.
We're not seeing the actual numbers. You're absolutely right. So, one of the great things you've done, Sheriff Mack, is raise awareness with respect to law enforcement, helping police officers or policy enforcers get on the constitutional bandwagon. Any great leader, as you know, leads and delegates and informs, but also has to have a succession plan. Obviously, you've taken a great deal of your personal time, your grandkids' time, your wife's time to do this, and the country owes you a debt of gratitude. But at some point, you're going to want to sail off into the proverbial sunset. You've earned that. What succession plan are you implementing to replace you at some point down the road?
Well, we've talked to several current sheriffs and former sheriffs. I would say roughly about 8 to 10. I'll be 73 in December. Thank you. I know I don't look good, but
you don't actually.
Well, I in a lot of ways I feel it. And my wife and I have dedicated our lives to this, and it's been such a roller coaster. So many ups and downs, so many attacks, and I looked at what happened to Charlie Kirk, and after that happened, my daughter, my cousin, my wife said that I need to be more careful, and that I need to hire security, and we can't afford security. And sometimes I have one of my kids go with me, and my son that used to be a cage fighter. He's very, very good fighter, very good at self-defense. And I could use him a little bit more, but he has his own life to pursue, and I want him to do that, and I love him. He's my youngest. He's in fact, he'll be 38 in 2 days. But I really trust in the Lord. I've always complained to the Lord. I kind of feel like Abraham. We just need more funding, Lord. We really need more funding. And uh, why I bring up Abraham again, when Abraham said if he could find 50 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, would he spare them? And he worked it all the way down to 10. I feel like that about Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, I've said this numerous times. If the good Lord does not strike down Washington, D.C., he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. Because I think it's the most corrupt place on the face of the planet. I really do.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
there's horrible things going on in the world, but Washington, D.C. Is, I think, the central part of the deep state. Uh, they've tried to kill Trump, but I also want Trump, though, to understand one thing. The Republican Party doesn't do a great job of following and adhering to and upholding the Constitution. There's a lot of things in the Constitution we've completely ignored, and we just go on because it's a habit. It's just part of politics now. But we really need to focus on that. And if we are going to make America great, whether it's again or still, uh, we have got to stay focused and dedicated and loyal to the supreme law of the land. This land was founded by God-fearing men who were inspired by God Almighty, and we have strayed far away from the path established by our founders. And the solution for America is to go back. It's behind us. It's in Independence Hall and in our foundation. It's in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And if we go back to those tenets and those basic principles, we'll make America great again. But if we don't, we're in for it. And I also believe that the cartels and terrorists that have been allowed into our country to infiltrate our country through the 4 years of the Biden administration, that they are planning some very catastrophic events and attacking our food supply and our infrastructure, and the water supply is top on their table.
Yeah, I agree that those are very paramount to what they want to do in their agenda. I think you're absolutely right. Sheriff Mack, going back a second on the notes, because you spend so much time, rightly so, as a sheriff and a patriot, keying in on protecting the Second Amendment, and thank you for doing that back in your historic case victory in 1993, is still wearing well to this day. We talked about California and New York and places like that that are really compromised, not just by liberal politics, but more of a satanic cabal mindset to the core. It's really Ephesians 6:12.
No question.
When
Yeah.
you think about it, that's the root of it, spiritual warfare.
Yes.
So we have a lot of great states in the Midwest and the South that are very ardently Second Amendment and pro-gun rights and protecting those rights and even strengthening them, which is great. But then again, in those states like California, where you do have, even in New York and upstate New York and parts of California, where we do have similar factions, but they're so hamstrung by all the control tactics. How do those folks who are trying to protect those Second Amendment rights in states that make it nearly impossible to do so, what recourse do they have, or what is your organization doing to maybe help them combat the issues they're having?
Well, that's another thing that I want President Trump to recognize, that the right to keep and bear arms is absolute. It shall not be infringed. And so what does Congress do? They can't make any laws against supposedly, which they've made over tens of thousands. They're not supposed to be able to make any law infringing on my right to keep and bear arms or on the right of any American. Yet they hire a national bureaucracy called the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they monitor gun ownership by law-abiding citizens all across the country. How is that? That organization has no lawful authority to exist. If you need somebody to go after people who are selling guns illegally or distributing or smuggling guns across the border, I guess there's some need for that to exist a little bit. But what they are doing monitoring FFLs, federal firearms licensees. And under the Biden administration, they arrested more federal firearm licensees in the history of our entire country. And they're going after good, honest people doing that. And this bureaucracy is totally out of control. I guess they've always wanted to be more like the IRS. So everybody now is like the IRS, EPA, FDA, USDA. They're all like the IRS now because they say, hey, the IRS can do all this stuff. We want to also. And yes, the IRS has been, and the FBI have both been used by presidents to attack their enemies. This is absolutely astonishingly atrocious that we allow what are supposed to be public servants to become hitmen and to be weaponized to go after political enemies of the president. And many different presidents have done that. And so Gary Aldrich, the former FBI, wrote a book about the Clintons, how they did that. Nixon did it. Nixon even had the CIA and the FBI pinned against each other. And so this has been so absolutely, here I go, I'm going to say that word again, corrupt. It is just too corrupt. And if we're going to really clean out the deep state, we've got to recognize the corruption that's going on, and we've got to clean it up. And we've got to prosecute more public officials, especially in Washington, D.C. That has not been nearly enough. Letitia James and John Bolton, those are just drops in the bucket. What about Alejandro Mayorkas and Garland and just about everybody in the entire cabinet and staff of Biden? And what about his family syndicate and all the crimes there? What about the guy who left cocaine in the West Wing of the White House and it was found inside the White House? They know darn well who that belonged to, but it got swept under the rug. So I don't want to be part of this anymore. All the lying and the political posturing and the shutdown, and which is a joke anyway. But haven't the American people had enough of these selfish, corrupt public officials? They don't care. They don't give a damn about us. And why are they in charge of the airways? Why are they in charge of security at airports? Why are they doing this for the airlines? Why are they instructing and in control of air traffic controllers? The airlines should be in charge of that. Why is that service provided by the federal government? The airlines are supposed to run the airlines, not the federal government. And so I'm tired of all of it, that has gone so far away from the experiment established by the founders, that this is a government based on self-government, and that we, the people, are in charge of this government, not bureaucrats. And we have been scourged with a corrupt federal bureaucracy. The nightmare of America now is not a dream. It is a nightmare, and it's been fomented completely and entirely by corrupt politicians.
You said it all. You said it all, Sheriff Mack. Really nothing to say more to that. You capsized it well. So last question on your time, Sheriff Mack. So CSPOA, in conjunction with other initiatives, as you know, has wholly been tasked with deputizing sheriffs, raising awareness of all the aforementioned topics you've discussed, and a whole host for that matter. All of this is steering us towards the return of a constitutional republic. So my question would be, in your perfect scenario vision, what you've worked for the past 40, 50 years, we'll say, what is it going to take to bring the police to become sheriffs instead of policemen and protect the interests of the people rather than the corporation? And in doing that, how do we parlay that in establishing us as a constitutional republic, which relieves and alleviates all of the aforementioned items you've rightly discussed?
Well, our entire mission has been to do that one county at a time. And there's only like 3,100 counties in America. So if we had people to wake up in their communities and start working locally, that could be actualized. that dream could happen overnight because you only need a few people. Maybe a city councilman here and there, maybe a county commissioner, but absolutely the sheriff and the county attorney, but and even by himself, the sheriff working with his people and forming a posse and being ready and having a Minuteman organization at his beck and call to help with any emergency, no matter what that might be, or disaster or natural disaster of any kind. Having that kind of service available to the people, but to take us back and return us to the Constitution, most people have looked at Washington, D.C., that it would be impossible there. And indeed, no matter who the next president is, Trump's 2 years, first 2 years might be the end of his effectiveness. Because if the Senate goes Democrat crazy progressive and the House of Representatives does the same, Trump's going to be sitting with a Supreme Court that's been rather straddling the fence on constitutional issues. Amy Coney Barrett has no clue what the Constitution is. And Roberts, well, you never know what you're going to get from him. And it's usually not very good. So I just don't see it happening in Washington, D.C. And we have living proof in history that it won't. Where it needs to happen is the countrysides of America. And we would need only a third of the counties to do it. So we need 1,000 counties, 1,000 good solid sheriffs that actually make this a sanctuary for the Constitution in their county. And they put all federal and state bureaucrats on notice. If you come into this county, you check with me first. And secondly, if you ever violate the rights of the people in this county, I will take action against you. And that is the beginning of the end of tyranny and totalitarianism in our country. And 1,000, 1/3 of the counties is enough for every American that really wants to be free to live in one of those counties. Right now, we're not really close to that. I say we have about 200, 250, maybe 300, which would put us at 10%. And that's not nearly enough. We need to make that at least 30, 33, 35%. And so that's where we're stuck. When I said I prayed for funding, yes, we really need funding. And I want to do a national conference with 1,000 sheriffs and get everybody on board. I think that would make the solution very immediate. And we need to be bigger, better, faster right now. And so maybe the good Lord is waiting. He said, I'm not going to do this for you. This is up to you. This is up to you and the people. And the people need to be involved in this process. If the people aren't involved in this process, it's not going to work. So the American people have got to be on board with what Patrick Henry called the holy cause of liberty. And we will win it that way. That is the way. The people have got to get involved.
Agreed. So one last question, if I may, to close out, Sheriff Mack, is the people clearly are the solution. Our forefathers set everything up for the people to be the solution, as you well know. So I guess the overarching question of the bullseye would be, what will it take to get the people involved? How far is it going to have to hit close to home before people say, you know what, I got to step up and do something?
Well, I've been doing these shows. I do 2 or 3, sometimes 4 of these shows, podcasts every day. Sunday, I usually maybe do 1 a month. Saturday, I usually do 2 or 3 a month. And we get very little reaction. And that worries me because I'll bet you in the last year, over 1 million people have heard my voice and heard my plea for this very solution. And we get maybe a dozen or so here and there a week that actually respond. Do more people really want it? Yes. But if they do, what are they doing? We at CSPOA And CSPOA is not important. CSPOA is only important because it's an avenue to where we need to go. But I don't care if sheriffs join CSPOA. I mean, I love it when they do, but that's not our goal. Membership in CSPOA is for the citizens. Join our citizen posse. But I never go to a sheriff and say, join our posse, pay our dues, whatever. All I want every sheriff in this country to do, every sheriff that I just was talking to a sheriff right before I got on the call with you. All I want these sheriffs to do is what he said. Sheriff Mack, you know I've always been with you and that I'm a part of CSPOA. And I said, Sheriff, I absolutely do know that. I absolutely, that is what we're after. We want sheriffs to believe in America. We want sheriffs to believe in the Constitution. We want them to enforce the Constitution. We want them to create a constitutional sanctuary in their counties. And we want them to reach out to the people and get them more involved. But folks, you're supposed to reach out to the sheriff and get him more involved. That's the problem here. You have got to wake up and realize the sheriff works for you. And he's the only law enforcement officer in the country that does so. You're his boss. You're his supervisor. He has no other boss or supervisor. You're it. And it's time. It's time. Go to cspoa.org. Let me say that slower.
Please go ahead.
Go to CSPOA, stands for Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association, cspoa.org. Get involved with us, join our posse, and you want to know why? We're offering you to be part of the solution and part of the holy cause of liberty, and we're offering that to you on a silver platter. It's easy. It doesn't take very much time. Doesn't take very much money. But here's what the Founding Fathers said. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We must do likewise today.
Couldn't agree more. So we'll leave that link in the description under right here in the video, folks, cspoa.org. Get involved, folks. If you want to be part of the solution, not the problem, it's really up to you. And you want more liberties, you want more freedom, you're going to have to fight for it again so that your generations downline never have to. Sheriff Mack, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you on this fine day in this podcast. Thank you for your service for all these years. Happy Veterans Day upcoming to you and all the military out there. Really appreciate it and look forward to speaking to you down the road.
Thank you so much, John. See you soon.
God bless.